All right, Evgenia, I'm very excited to have you here. You're senior associate at Atomico, I think, that's right. So Atomico, for those of you who don't know, it was originally founded by Niklas Zennström, co-founder of Skype. Obviously a huge exit, and then it has become one of the biggest VC funds that is investing in Europe and beyond Europe as well. Recent investments, maybe we can name Supercell, Klarna, Rovio, GoEuro, any other outstanding investment you want to name?
No, absolutely. I think that those are some of the key successes. There's been quite a few recently as well. So we're yet to see where they're heading. We recently did On Truck, which is a freight marketplace in Spain. We invested in FarmDrop in the UK, and there are plenty of others.
Cool. So there are many entrepreneurs here coming to WEB2DAY. So what kind of investment are you looking for personally?
Sure. So we usually invest from Series A and beyond. Typically, we would like to come in sort of on the earlier side of things. We're capable of going into Series B and Series C as well. The idea for such a big fund for Atomico is to be a patient form of capital who are there to accompany the entrepreneur in the longer journey and be there sort of throughout the stages. In terms of the sector, we're really sector agnostic. We have done B2B, we have done B2C as well. So it's more about backing visionary and ambitious entrepreneurs who are ready to be sort of the global leaders of tomorrow.
So a bit of everything, really.
Exactly.
Cool. How did you get into VC in the first place?
So I came down more of a finance route. So I used to work in banking, and then I was an investor at a private equity firm. And I think what was really interesting for me is backing growth stories, right? It was going after things that were growing fast, that were explosive, that were taking over the world in terms of disruption. Being an investor in private equity, I was investing in larger offline firms, and in fact, I was seeing them being disrupted from within, right? So I figured, might as well jump on the train of disruption myself and start in the tech industry.
Interesting. So I'm doing a keynote on this stage a bit later today about tech fatigue, and it's mostly about why I love tech. And I'm going to ask you, everyone here at this conference, why do you love tech? It's a tough question, so.
It is a very tough question. I mean, to be honest with you, I think tech is not an industry per se, right? I think it's something that used to be one, and today it is something that permeates every single sector, right? If you look back in sort of 2006, I think out of the top 5 highest market companies, there was only one tech, which was Microsoft, right? The rest were, like, I think CT, GE, so very much incumbent offline businesses. Today, all 5 are technology companies, right? Including Facebook, including Google, Amazon. So that kind of level of permutation of everyday life is astonishing, right? And it kind of you can't escape it. And so for me, it's part of the everyday. And I think the second one is an incredible positive impact that tech can bring to the world, right? And it's making people the travel is closer, the healthcare system is affected, education, everything around you, really. So I think it's about positive impact as well.
And do you think it's only positive, or are there some bad side effects of, let's say, we had Airbnb on stage earlier, like having many apartments turning into Airbnb apartments?
Well, I mean, I'm sure everything in the world has a sort of a flip side of the coin, right? So, I mean, hopefully on the net, it's a positive actor of change, and I think again, it affects every industry, and I think ultimately positively. But I think it's also about driving overall economic growth, about creating jobs, and making sure unemployment rates go down when there are technology companies empowering people.
And do you think sometimes it drives inequalities as well?
I think ultimately technology is helping democratize the world more than anything else, right? I think today, we have more computing power, I think more in the past 24 months than there was through the entire history. There are sort of connected devices. There are 500 billion phones that have been added in the past sort of 3 years, right? So I think everyone is touched by technology, and I think in a quite more and more democratic pragmatic way, right? So I think it's going to be a great empowerment for the emerging economies as well.
All right, let's switch gear a bit and focus a bit more on Atomico.
Sure.
So for the untrained eye, it's a bit difficult to differentiate, let's say, index from Axel, from Atomico. What makes Atomico so special?
Sure. So very conscious that sort of from the outside in, the pitch might seem similar to a lot of people. Now, I think what's really different about Atomico is that it's a fund that was created by an entrepreneur. And I think Nicholas is a very inspirational one, having created one of the first decacorns in Europe. But it's not just him, right? We have 6 entrepreneurs in our team who created $1 billion plus companies, and that's quite unique, I think, on the European scene. On the European scene, exactly. And I think what's really great is that also we have what we call a value creation team, which is effectively similar to an Andreessen-like model, where we have top executives who came and joined us from Facebook, from Google, from Uber, from Spotify, who are functional experts in something, right? It can be user growth, marketing, it can be talent, who are there to help our portfolio companies grow, right? And I think that's that platform model of doing things in between board meetings is quite unique in Europe.
So providing additional services to your portfolio companies.
Exactly,
and so how many people do you have working on these support tasks?
Sort of a good 12 to 15 people.
Yeah, that's quite a big team. And now let's focus on you in particular. What's your day-to-day job? When you wake up in the morning, you show up to work, what kind of day can you expect?
I think VC is the land of kind of unexpected, to be honest with you. And I think that's one of the reasons I was so excited about this job, right, is no one day looks like the next one, right? It's a mix of helping our portfolio companies on a daily basis, of sourcing new opportunities, of speaking to journalists. So yeah, it's extraordinarily diverse, and I think that's kind of the beauty of this job.
And do you tend to listen to a lot of pitches and screen pitches for partners and stuff like that?
Yeah, no, a fair amount, absolutely. I think a part of my job is going to be the first filter, and I think that's extraordinarily exciting, and that's kind of a big responsibility too.
And I'm sure we're on the same boat, because I receive a ton of pitches, and that too many good startups out there, and sometimes it's very hard to say no because I don't have enough time to write everything I would want to write. And I'm sure it's the same for you. Sometimes you have to say no to entrepreneurs.
That's the hardest part.
Yeah, is it hard for you?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think I have a lot of my friends who are entrepreneurs. So I think have a huge amount of empathy and compassion, and being, having to say no is extraordinarily difficult. Luckily, there's a lot of capital in Europe, so hopefully, right things get funded at the right time.
All right. So, would you recommend a startup to another VC firm if you say no?
Yeah, frequently actually. Yeah, I think the good thing about VC as well is that it's a very collaborative job. So people tend to pay it forward in general. So if someone is a wonderful entrepreneur and a startup is great, but is just a little bit too early potentially, absolutely, I'll send them on to someone else.
Even if like many different firms are excited about the same deal, would you say it's a collaborative industry in this case? Like, fighting for the valuation of some Series C round or something like that?
I mean, yeah, of course there's competition, and of course there's a lot of capital today, which makes it even more complex. But luckily, being a startup founder is a very long road, right? Like you're looking at 10 years of funding. So thankfully, various VCs can come in at various stages of the development of the company, and most funds with deep pockets like ourselves are capable at entering at multiple stages. And I think if anything, it's actually great for an entrepreneur to have multiple VCs on their board. It's an extra validation of their work.
Interesting. All right, this is probably the toughest question, so get ready.
Uh-oh.
Get ready. So during the pitches you get at Atomico's office, for instance, have you ever seen a founder cry in front of you?
No, I'm
Never.
afraid that's an easy answer.
Because I want to demystify the fact that, you know, like it's okay to have feelings when you're a founder and you're hitting rock bottom. Interesting.
Unfortunately not, but I think every founder is very different. And I think as a female investor, I'm particularly sensitive to, for example, having women pitch, right? You know, there are various, there's various emotionalities, various backgrounds, various things involved when you're a founder, and yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, no, I haven't, you know.
How many, like, what's the ratio women versus men who come and pitch you?
It'd be a hard one, but ultimately, I do think obviously women still remain a minority, unfortunately.
So minority, like 10% or like 40%?
Yeah, I'd say closer to low digits, probably. Yeah.
And how do we change that?
That's a great question, and I wish I had an immediate answer that would fix the problem. There's definitely a bit of a capital gap, and I think luckily there's a lot of organizations today, be it in France, be it in the UK, from Start Her to Develop Her to She Works to Blooming Founders, that are supportive, and I think that's part of the answer is making sure that there's a network of support and people who kind of been there and done that are there to answer the tough questions. That's one thing, and I think that the second thing is encouraging girls go into engineering degrees, go into tech, STEM education as well. And I think that at times it may be sort of the funnel problem. So encouraging it at the very root is equally important.
Yeah, I think I agree with you that it's going to take years and, you know, multiple ways to tackle this issue, which is dear to my heart as well. What does it take to be a founder? Do you have to be crazy or do you have to be insane?
I mean, ultimately, you probably have to be a little bit crazy because you have to be a visionary, right? And I think that's one of the key qualities is being able to spot things that no one else has before you, right? But I think it goes beyond that, right? Like being visionary is hugely important, but you also need to be a good executor. You need to be strategic. You need to be technical. You need to be able to create a culture.
Yeah. And how many female partners do you have at Atomico, by the way?
So we have 3 senior women at Atomico, 1 based in China and 2 based in London.
Out of how many in total?
Tough question. On the investment team, we're roughly 12. In total in Atomico, we're roughly 30, 40 people.
Okay, so that's better than many VC firms. But,
we try.
I hope they're going to make you the boss at some point.
I'll give you the phone number of my boss.
All right, let's switch gear completely and talk about the landscape a bit. Do you think, so there's something I've been seeing for the past couple of years is that Google, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, and Microsoft keep becoming bigger. You can look at the valuation of these companies, the market cap. All of them are currently up by a lot. It seems like now that they're tackling everything at once, and all of them are tackling everything. Do you think it's possible to start a company in 2017 and overtake one of those giants?
I mean, yeah, 100%. I think when they started, no one believed that was possible as well, and I think that's the beauty of this job. And for us, raising such a large fund in Europe is a testament to our belief that it's absolutely possible to create sort of a $10 billion plus company in the UK. In Europe, absolutely.
And which one is going to be next?
In terms of sector, or?
In tech, it could be European, could be American, anything.
Well, I think it's going to be in Europe, and I think it will be something that tackles a huge sector, right? And it can be any sector, right? I personally have a huge interest in mobility and logistics, and I think it's about time that transportation and logistics became a utility. So something that combines that kind of outlook for I'm going to go after something that's huge, as well as being able to use all the enablers at your disposal, right? And enablers being AI, being IoT, being cloud, everything sort of combined, I think will create the next global category winner.
Cool. Are you more excited about Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, or Microsoft today?
Okay, that's going to be a very personal opinion. I'm very excited about all of them, right? Like, I think they're all doing absolutely amazing things. I think just because of my mobility interest, I am quite excited by Amazon. And I think it's an absolutely fascinating story of being a bookstore turned into a logistics giant.
When do you think Jeff Bezos is going to become the richest man on Earth? This year or next year?
I don't know. I'll keep on watching that story develop, but it is definitely extraordinarily exciting what he's doing.
Yeah, as you know, many people say that Amazon is going to be the first company with a $1 trillion valuation. Do you think it's realistic?
I mean, the market keeps on growing, right? Potentially, who knows? I'm not sure so where the cap would be.
All right, we're going to play a little game now. Quick questions and answers. Okay. I'm going to give you 2 options, and you're going to pick one of them each time. The company you're the most excited about and you would have invested if you had the opportunity when they were still, Series A level.
That's a tough one. Okay.
So let's start with Uber or Lyft?
God, Uber, probably.
Okay.
Gotta go for people who kind of won first.
Snapchat or Instagram? Let's say Facebook never acquired Instagram.
Say probably Instagram. I'm a little bit older.
Would you have said Instagram last year, though? Now that Instagram copied everything.
The copying thing. Well, you know what? Copying, I feel like that's actually fine, right? Like if you're a product-driven person and you see wonderful things being created by the people, I think it's absolutely okay to kind of adopt a similar strategy. No, I think sort of the finance person in me, having sort of read through Snap prospectus, I think they're doing wonderful things, but I think it's kind of we're yet to see where it's heading. So I think, yeah, I'm torn on this one. I'm torn.
Yeah. Do you think there's a moral issue with copying though? Like, because it was so violent in some way, the way they copied every single feature of Snapchat.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surely there is a bit of an ethical consideration, but it's a tough world out there.
True, that's what Instagram is saying. BlaBlaCar or Criteo?
Oof.
You gotta pick.
I gotta pick. I gotta say BlaBlaCar probably, because I mean, Criteo is a wonderful story and it's the first big success, and I'm hugely admirative of it. But equally, I think just kind of today, BlaBlaCar is probably the new symbol of what's happening with French tech, and I think the guys are they're showing there's a virtuous circle by not only having been great entrepreneurs themselves, but also reinvesting in the ecosystem. And I think that's how the cookie crumbles. That's how you make tech community grow.
Yeah, I think they've become some kind of symbol. Nantes or Paris?
Trick question.
Careful.
I'm gonna go with Nantes. Listen, I think there are a lot in France outside of Paris. Paris is absolutely still the heart of the tech innovation today. Me personally, I grew up in Toulouse, actually. Oh. So I'm very much sensitive to the fact that there is a lot of innovation happening outside of the capital.
Oculus or WhatsApp?
WhatsApp. I think there's a lot to be done with messaging versus social networks. I like what WeChat is doing in terms of creating a true ecosystem.
Everybody's becoming WeChat, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And I think that's probably the way forward, right?
Do you have a WeChat account?
I don't, because I don't have enough friends who use it. I used to have a Line account, and Line is doing very similar things out of Japan. I think it's definitely sort of the way to innovate is to have those extra services, be it payments or bookings or...
I use WeChat because for some reason Bitcoin people talk on WeChat. And it feels like the product hasn't changed much in the past 3 or 4 years, which is a bit worrying because they innovated quite a lot and now it's standing still. Leading me to my next question, Skype or WhatsApp?
Oh, I gotta be loyal and say Skype.
Stripe or Coinbase?
Ooh, Tough one. God, let's say probably Stripe today. Let's see what happens.
Dropbox or Box?
I use both. I'd say Box.
GoPro or Parrot?
GoPro.
Brexit or Trump?
Another hard one. I gotta say Brexit. I mean, neither's good, right? Both I personally believe are a bump on the road. I think things will get better. Tech is way beyond both events, but yeah.
And one last question: Index or Excel?
Ooh, Atomico.
And otherwise, Index or Excel?
Yeah, I know, can't answer that one, unfortunately. I mean, they're both excellent funds and both
you don't want to
hugely
fight
respected.
the next investment with the next term sheet. So, all right, let's come back to Brexit and Nantes versus Paris. You lived in many countries. You speak many languages. What do you think of let's start with the French tech ecosystem. What do you think of the French tech ecosystem right now?
I'm in awe, to be honest with you. I think when I was in school in Paris, you know, entrepreneurship was still kind of in the early stages, and tech in general. In Paris, there were not as many events, there were not many things happening. I think having come back after having lived in London today, it's astonishing just how sort of thriving the ecosystem is, right? If you look at the past year, there's been more dollars invested, more deals happening in France than in Germany for the first time in many years, for example, right? So I am hugely admirative of what's happening, and I expect big things to happen in the coming years in France.
And obviously, you know a lot about the London tech scene as well, because Atomico has offices over there. So there are many entrepreneurs probably in this room wondering if they should move to London to start a company. Do you think it's the right idea?
I have kind of two-folded answer to this question. So one is I think there is no geographic monopoly on entrepreneurial talent. You know, we have companies in sort of geographies you would expect, right? Like sort of UK and then in Germany and Scandinavian countries, but we also have investments in Klagenfurt in Austria. We have investments in Switzerland. So I think today it is possible for great entrepreneurs to come truly from anywhere in the world. That's one thing. And the second is it's extraordinarily cheap today to start a company. In the 90s, it would be roughly 5 million to start a company. Today, it's sort of 500K and a laptop to kind of really kick things off. So I truly think it doesn't really matter. You could be in the smallest city in the south of France. You could be elsewhere. You could be in Eastern Europe. You could be in Asia. It's absolutely possible to start where you're at.
Okay, maybe one last question before ending this interview. Personally, if you had to start a company, where would you start it?
Very personally, well, I mean, I live in London and I absolutely love London, so that's a possibility. But I also have a huge emotional attachment to France. I am very happy about the recent French elections. So, you know, Paris would be absolutely possible as well. Okay,
and if we were doing this interview in London, would you say London?
Listen, it would be probably either Paris or London. I think both cities are great.
All right, thank you very much for this interview. What do you think of this event?
It's awesome. This is my first time in Nantes. It's really great. So I'm hoping to explore a little bit more.
Thank you, EVGENIA PLOTNIKOVA.
Merci.